Welcome back, beloveds. Got my hair all over the place. My name is Jem, and I'm going to share with you what I've had a lot of different jobs, but the last job I actually was employed as was a singing teacher. Now let's backtrack. I was classically trained. I grew up in choirs. I was, in the school choir. Then, for a very short time, I was in the Brisbane choir. I was also in a band in my 20s, but it went nowhere. I was trained at Brisbane School of Music, and my teacher, she had a she thought I had a beautiful voice, but she had one of those really smoky velvet voices that if you were sitting in a jazz, with the smoke and a jazz club where all the smoke, or a nightclub or something, having a drink. And I said to her, why are you a teacher? You should be out there singing. You're so gifted. Anyway, I was trained on songs like from Jesus Christ Superstar, I Don't Know How to Love Him. Also, Bette Midler's song, or originally it was Janis Joplin's song, The Rose, and also another one which I can't remember off the top of my head. So I've been classically trained. Now, what does classically trained mean? It means singing to scales. However, when I became a teacher, I changed it all up. And I'm going to explain this to you. So hopefully my simplifications make sense. When you buy a piano has to sound like all the other pianos. So if the piano is at a note or at a scale, it's not a piano. But you and I sound different. Our voices are unique. So the classical training of singing to scales is actually pretty bad. Now let me explain why. To put it very simply, we have a left and right hemisphere. Now the left hemisphere is very logical, very judgmental, very analytical. The right is where you dream, intuition, and where your soul passion comes from. So you're drawing, you're writing, you're singing. So it's not just singing, it's any of these gifts that if you so we'll put it even more simply, drawing, and you start halfway through your drawing saying, that doesn't look right, you've allowed your left part of the brain to come in. So I'll put that into singing. So if you're singing a song and then suddenly your left side of the brain says you're not going to hit that note, or you start questioning something, you won't hit the note. And it's because this left side is analytical and judge. So I used to also teach creative writing. And I've actually got a book called Storytelling Mythology, and it explains this better. So if you just allow yourself to be, whether it be drawing, whether it be singing or writing, to make it simpler for you, let's say you're writing a story. I say, write that story. Don't think about punctuation. Don't you think about grammar. Just write. Because punctuation and grammar is a left side brain activity. So as soon as you start if you're in the middle of a creative flow and you're writing and suddenly say, oh, that's not spelt right, or start to question, you stop the creativity from flowing. It's the same with singing. Don't overthink it. Just allow yourself to soar. And don't think you have to sound like a classic piano, because we all sound differently. So there's a few different ways of being singing. You should practice every day, but not scales. One of the practices you can do is like tongue twisters. Pronunciation is very important in singing. And the other, you can, if you want, do a sort of scales, but don't use your left brain and say, okay, am I going to get it right? When I was being classically trained, my music teacher would play a note, and then I would have to sing an octave above or an octave below, and she'd play, as soon as I've sung it, she'd play it on the piano, and I'd hit the note perfectly. But I, as a music teacher, used to say, just sing the song. First, what's most important about singing is the storytelling. It's the emotion. After you've sung the song, you can always do it better. It's just repetition and repetition of singing. But as soon as you start questioning, am I going to hit that note? You won't. And there's also different parts. When you go for low, you have to come from the deep, from your diaphragm. When you go high, there's a voice. It's what's called your head voice. So deep is your chest voice, and high is your head voice. Anyway, I was telling you how to practice. And another way of practicing is start on a note. So la. So let's go. And you increase in volume, then decrease in volume, then go up another note. So la, and then la, and then la, and change it like ma. So then la, ma, na, and then so and you can even play around. You can go like start off low and a low note softly and go high. As you go high, increase volume and go, and then come back low, decrease volume, and vice versa. As you start low, have your loudest volume. As you go up, decrease, and then increase. So I'll give you an example. You can go or la, la. These are better exercises than, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. It's better because the other very important thing in songs is breath work. If you're not breathing, that song, you're not going to get volume, you're not going to hit your note. So also breath, and it's knowing where to have your breaths. So when I teach singing, say I've just got my shopping list here. So say this is your song you want to sing. I make you read it out first, so half a loaf of bread, buttery cereal, and get to know where to put the emotion. So if it's a love song, I love you. You emphasize on the emotional bits because when you're singing a song, you're telling a story. So, and phrasing. So, another good way as well is the vowels. A, E, I, O, U. A, E, I, O, U. And then up a bit. A, E, sorry. A, E, I, O, U. And then up again. A, E, I, O, U. And then up, and you can keep going and do it. So pronouncing vowels and making sure that when you pronounce the consonants, that you pronounce them properly. So to end off, it's about emotional storytelling, connection. That's what people teach you. Connect to the song. So if you have a love song and say it's about a broken heart, I would suggest that you think about a time in your life that your heart was broken and let that be the song. And then it's breath, and it's practice every day. And it's not, as I said, so much about making sure, that you're doing scales, but more about learning to project your voice, learning to know when to increase volume. And again, I put the thing of breath and remembering to change from your chest voice to your head voice. And I'm a soprano, and just sing for the joy of it. Don't worry if, other people are listening. Don't worry about that. Who cares? But some people have great trouble standing up and speaking in front of people because everybody's watching you. And there's the old adage, if you imagine them all with no clothes on, you can sometimes get around it. But having a little bit of anxiety and fear is natural. So I had one of my students was a 15-year-old girl, and she went from being shy in front of everybody to going into a contest singing a cappella. That's a very brave move to sing a cappella. So as well as teaching to sing, I had to teach self-esteem. So I used to say, go and sing in front of the mirror, and always remember, who cares what someone thinks? Everybody's going to judge your voice. You're not going to appeal to everybody. But don't worry if someone doesn't like how you sing. You like it. So and I also believe everybody can sing. We're just unique. How, the way we talk. No one's really sounds the same, do we? We all have, some people are high-pitched. I'm high-pitched. Some people have a really deep voice. It depends. And how you sing should not be, it's a unique instrument. So it's not like a guitar has to sound like a guitar or a piano has to sound like a piano. Instruments have to sound and be in tune, in notes. But the human voice, it does not. The human voice is unique. And when you start doing scales, that's when the left side the brain comes in, because it's already judging. You've got to go from A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and make sure you hit every note. And that's logical and that's reasoning. But if you just allow yourself to do simple exercises like I've shared, and not even worry if you're flat or sharp. So don't care. And also, another joy, poetry comes in. If you're a singer, write poetry and turn your poetry into your music. And I used to write tons of poetry. Sadly, I've lost a lot of my poetry. Again, you can find some of my poetry in books from Amazon. But yes, the takeaway I'm trying to teach you with this is, when you sing, sing for the joy of singing. It doesn't matter, who's listening. Who cares if they don't like you singing? You be proud of what you do. Music and song brings joy to the world. I'd like to sing. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. And there was a different song there. But yes, just sing because the joy. I also used to busk, and we think we'd sound terrible, but this is going back in the 1980s. My sister would play the guitar and we would sing, and one time a guy came along and he gave us like $5. $5 was a lot of money. We went and bought McDonald's hamburger or something with it. So thank you to that guy all those years ago believing in us. And I want to say thank you to my music teacher. I hope that she had great hopes for me, but unfortunately I fell pregnant, and towards the end of my pregnancy I couldn't keep singing, because when you are that pregnant, it impacts on your lungs and you can't get the breath. So I stopped singing. There's been a couple of times that I've gone along to audition for different bands, but they've expected you to know a song that they've made and to get it right within 10 minutes. The last audition I did for a band, I was in my mid-20s, and this guy had written this song. He was just about to go on tour, and I was the last person that they interviewed, and he said to me, do you know, you really have a good voice, but we need you to harmonize our songs now. And that's hard to do. I also do have to share that many years ago in Townsville, there was a guy by the name of Barry Voss, who is the brother of Sandra Voss. Sandra Voss is a famous opera singer, and he had his own record. Well, he produced his own records. He went bankrupt, but he produced his own records. And I went in there and I sang I Can't Help Falling in Love with You, the Elvis Presley song, or Wise Men Say, that's the other title for it. And I just did one. Went in there, sang it, and it was done. And I've also been back up for quite a few of his projects, mainly Christian, gospel, backup singer. And one time he had 5 of us girls in the back doing the backup, and we all had to harmonize. But because I had the strongest voice, he said, Jen, you get to the back. So the girls were closer to the microphones and singing, and I was back here because I was coming over the top of them because of my really strong voice. But when I did my record for my ex-husband, Wise Men Say, he did the wonderful guitar to it. Sadly, that's on a cassette tape that has been since broken and can never be fixed. It's lost forever. If you stayed with me this long, thank you very much for watching, and I hope I've helped you in not only being able to sing, but the same rules apply to any type of art. Singing is an art. Playing an instrument, drawing, writing. Please let your right side of the brain just go with the flow. Don't question it, because as soon as you start to say, does that sound good? Am I doing this right? You've let the left brain in, and as soon as the left brain comes in, it stops that creative juice. Okay? Take care of yourselves and each other. Love, light, and blessings. Bye.